Well, last week was a very busy week over here at Brother Counsel Studios. On Thursday, we had Kate and Kevin on from Massville Mafia and Yellow Cottage Tales, and we had a lengthy discussion about the evidence in the Karen Reed case. And then Saturday night, I went on to Turtle Boy's channel, and we had a discussion about the conspiracy and also other evidence in the Karen Reed case. And I wanted to see from both sides of the spectrum here. I wanted to see from the people who believe Karen Reed is guilty. I wanted to see from Turtle Boy, who believes 100% of the conspiracy. So I really wanted to get both takes on this and see whether either of them can convince me one way or the other. So today we are going to recap all of that happened. I'm going to play some clips for you and some of my takeaways from the discussion. Before we do, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, and that is going to be Aura, the cybersecurity company that's helping keep your personal data safe in a world where data breaches are on the rise. As you know, in today's digital age, a lot of legal cases can hinge on data security, whether it's protecting sensitive client information, defending against cyber threats, or navigating the legal complexities of privacy laws. That's where Aura comes in. They provide top-notch security solutions that help protect your online presence from hackers, data theft, and unauthorized access. Whether you're a small business, a freelancer, or just someone who wants to secure their personal data, Aura has your back with cutting-edge encryption, secure browsing tools, and 24/7 monitoring. It's exactly the kind of protection you need if you're involved in a case where sensitive information is at stake. Stop leaving yourself vulnerable to data breaches. Go to my sponsor, aura.com/brothercounsel, to get a 14-day free trial and see if any of your data has been exposed. The link is in the description. All right. Okay. So first, let's go to the clip in which I was talking to Turtle Boy about something that I thought Kevin told me when we were having our discussion on Thursday. So I had the discussion with Kevin and Kate on Thursday, and then I went to Turtle Boy on Saturday night. Okay, so I was talking to Turtle Boy about something that I believed Kevin told me during our discussion. So here I'm going to play for you the clip, what I told Turtle Boy, and then I'm going to play for you the clip in what I was referring to when Kevin told me this specific statement. So you can be the judges yourself about what he meant. Here we go. You notice what happened? I think he actually conceded to me that there was reasonable doubt. I think at one point maybe it just kind of slipped out of his mouth because we were like talking about the ARC experts. We were going in circles because Kate kept saying, yeah, well, they were only given a very limited amount of evidence. And every time I say, well, what weren't they given? And why is that important? And then every single thing wasn't important. And then we kept going in circles there a little bit. And then I think actually Kevin kind of said for a minute, well, I understand what Brother Counsel's saying, that maybe there's some doubt there. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's what I said. And if you remember, the first like 45 minutes of the discussion or debate, whatever you want to call it, we were talking about the ARCA experts. First, we spoke a little bit about the Google search, but then we moved on to the ARCA experts. Because for me, once I heard the ARCA experts and they went uncontradicted, essentially, unless you want to call Trooper Paul contradicting them, which again, they're not the same ballpark. But once I heard the ARCA experts and they explained how scientifically this doesn't fit with the physics, so that to me that was reasonable doubt. I mean, that's quite frankly pretty straightforward reasonable doubt. And that's what we were going in circles about. So Kate was saying, yeah, well, they're only given a very limited amount of material to review. And this is like the common argument that I've been hearing for months now. And every time we talk about this argument, I say, okay, well, let's talk about what they weren't given. And let's talk about what they were given. What were they given? The autopsy reports, the pictures of the vehicle, the pictures of the debris, the pictures of everything that was going on, all the pieces of taillight. They were given a lot. The police reports, the pictures of his arm, they were given a lot. And they're given the CDR, even though there's nothing on the CDR. So what exactly were they not given? So they weren't given the DNA about that here, which, again, doesn't change the physics, which I explained a million times. And then we also have, well, they didn't actually inspect the vehicle, which they both said was not necessary because they're able to make these determinations based on the pictures. That's what they do, and that's part of their science. And then the question is, okay, so what else were they missing? Well, they're missing Trooper Paul's accident reconstruction report, which, again, I don't think that was necessary for them to have that report either. And then finally, they came to the text stream data. Well, they didn't have the text stream data. And even you look at the ARCA website itself, it says how important the text stream data is to get. And therefore, they didn't have that text stream data. They can never have come to the conclusion. Well, we spoke about that also. So what do you think the text stream data would have said? Oh, that there was the car went 24 miles per hour in reverse, and there was some sort of change with the steering wheel, and that would have been consistent with the pedestrian strike, right? At the end of the day, they're looking at the damage to the vehicle, and they're looking to the injuries to John O'Keefe. And they said very clearly that this damage to the vehicle does not equal these injuries to John O'Keefe's arm. It simply doesn't. And then they're saying, well, maybe his arm was positioned a different way instead of like this, like that. And he only discounted if it was like this, not like that. And we took care of all these arguments. And we said that that's just quite frankly not what they said. They said, and especially Dr. Rentschler, they said that if 1,000 pounds of force is acting on an arm whatever you want to call it, whether it's like this, whether it's like that, if 1,000 pounds of force is acting on that arm, you're going to see a lot of bruising. And that was when he was doing it with the model of 15 miles per hour. So forget about 24 miles per hour. This is 15 miles per hour. And the only possibility that he left open was that maybe she nudged him a drop. And that was definitely not the Commonwealth's theory. So the only option that Dr. Rentschler gave you that fits within science is if she nudged him. And the same way, an infinite amount of possibilities could have happened also. So that goes in the same pocket with all those infinite amounts of possibilities. And if there's infinite amount of possibilities, then Karen Reed has to walk. I mean, like, that's just reasonable doubt right there. So the Commonwealth's theory is that she backed the car going 24 miles per hour into his arm. Whether you call it a side swipe or not, 1,000 pounds of force was acting on his arm. Dr. Rundle said there would be much more bruising and fracturing, things like that. And then also, Dr. Wolf said there'd be much more damage to the vehicle. So that doesn't change. So nothing, we kept going in circles about this. Okay, and then eventually, after we were going in circles, it sounded to me like Kevin came around and said something like to the effect of, I can understand how that's reasonable doubt. So I'm going to play for you the clip, and you can all be the judges yourself. So here we go. Let me just pull it up. Okay. Ready? Listen carefully because it's only in a few seconds. Here we go.
I'm okay with you saying that their opinions create a doubt for you, but I just wish you would stop saying science shows like somebody old man would command its canine and threw it down, and science says this did not happen, because that didn't happen. That wasn't in the trial.
Okay, so let's take that apart. First of all, he said, I'm okay with you saying that their opinions create a doubt for you. So just someone please explain what does that mean? Doesn't that mean that, yeah, I'm okay with a person who would say that their opinions create reasonable doubt? Isn't that exactly what he said? Maybe he's saying it didn't create reasonable doubt for him, but he just said, I'm okay with you saying that their opinions create a reasonable doubt. So it sounded to me like he was conceding that, yeah, sure, that could be reasonable doubt. Now, maybe he personally doesn't believe that. That's okay, but it sounds to me like he conceded that position is a rational position. He just doesn't like the fact that I'm saying, oh, science came down, like, the 10 commandments and said that this couldn't happen. Even though, if you think about it, that's exactly what Dr. Munch and Dr. Wolf did. It's exactly what they did say. They said that there was no scientific way to explain this. So, again, I don't know what was taken out of context. I'm not sure what people are talking about when they're saying, he didn't say that. I mean, I just played through the clip. It sounded to me like he was saying that that's a reasonable position to take. So maybe he personally doesn't believe that, but he was saying that definitely is a reasonable position. I mean, that's how I understood it. So maybe you can all correct me and leave the comments about how that's not really what he meant. Okay, let's move on. There is another very important clip that apparently is going around, and people are publicly talking about this clip. And I'm gonna play for you the clip because it's I think we have to understand what this clip is about, and then we can try to understand what I was saying and what other people are saying that I said. So here we go again. I'm going to show you what I said by Turtle Boy, and it was talking about we were talking about DUI. Now in Massachusetts, it's not called DUI, even though a lot of times you refer to it as DUI, but in Massachusetts apparently it's called OUI. So this is where we're saying that if the Commonwealth would have prosecuted Karen Reed for driving while under the influence of alcohol, which is a crime by itself, without murder attached to it, just driving under the influence of alcohol, then I was saying they could have had a pretty good shot at getting a conviction if that was the charge. Because I think there was pretty good evidence that she was drinking, and they did take her, blood later at the hospital. And if you backtrack all the time, then that could equal that she was drunk at the time that she was driving. There's pretty good evidence that she was driving. So I think there could have been a case for DUI or OUI, as it's referred to in Massachusetts. So I'm just going to play through the clip that we were talking about, and then we're going to see. I'm going to tell you apparently what people are saying about this. So it's 2:10. 35. Oh, we'll start from here.
Oh, he also drove home. It's like all these people did. They all drank and drove. I don't think they're going to catch a DUI charge out of this. I don't know.
Yeah, see, I think that if they would have charged Karen Reed with DUI, they maybe would have had a guilty.
No, because they didn't test her. I don't think they would even get her on that because they didn't.
Okay, but I think they had that was their best chance. I think driving while she was intoxicated. I think that was their best chance of getting a guilty verdict. I mean, they didn't
even charge her with that. Why didn't they? They didn't even add that charge on. Right.
that was their better shot. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so let's talk about that. So what was I saying? Pretty clearly, I think it's pretty clear what I'm trying to say here. That there's, they charged her with manslaughter because of OUI. So that's when you kill someone while driving drunk. And there's some also lesser included that have to do with manslaughter. Okay, manslaughter while OUI is different than OUI without manslaughter. Okay, so what I was saying, I think this is pretty clear. I don't think you have to be the chacham from the Manashana to understand this. That I was saying that if they would have charged her with OUI just plainly, they could have got a guilty verdict because there's pretty good evidence about that. But beyond that, when it has to do with a car making contact with John O'Keefe, that's where the ARCA experts come in. And that's where they create reasonable doubt. Now, apparently, I think people have been understanding my comment to mean that she was not charged with manslaughter while OUI, which is very interesting to me, how you can understand that from what I said. I think it was pretty clear what I was saying is they did not charge her with OUI, just plain OUI. They charged her with manslaughter with OUI. Okay, so I think that I wanted to clear that up. I hope that's all crystal clear right now. Okay, now I want to move on to some of the other parts of this parts of this discussion that I had with Kevin and Kate, and some of the other parts. So we were talking about probable cause. One of the issues that we were talking about. So, is there probable cause to search 34 Fairview? Now you can imagine that their position was that there was no probable cause, as a lot of the testimony came out from the police that there's just simply no probable cause that exists to be able to search that house. So I didn't really go for that as much. So let me just play for you what we discussed about this, and I'll see exactly what Kate's position is on this, and then we'll discuss it for a second. So it's 59, 57. All right, here we go.
There's no probable cause there, just the presence of somebody on the property line at that, but in front of the house. That you have to be able to connect that victim to that home somehow, right?
So what Kate is saying is yeah, just because somebody shows up dead on your front lawn doesn't mean that the police get to search your house. There has to be some sort of connection between the people in the house and the deceased that's on the lawn. So I think the very obvious response to this, which is what I did respond in this discussion, was that there is a connection between the people in the house and John O'Keefe. The connection is very simple. They invited him to the house. If you invite someone to your house, and then 20 minutes later, after you invited him to your house, he ends up dead on your front lawn, that's probable cause. And the same way that we spoke about, we spoke about in this discussion also, how she asked me, do you think that there's probable cause to charge Karen Reed? I said, sure. Any lawyer knows that probable cause is the easiest standard to satisfy. Very, very easy. The joke goes that you can get this mug on your desk charged because of probable cause. So if you're okay with that, with Karen Reed being charged because the probable cause is so low, how is it not probable cause to search that house when the people inside invited them over? Now, yeah, I understand that the people in the house all said that he didn't come in the house. Okay, but that's part of the investigation. Of course, you have to interview them, see if what they say. But does that mean you're not going to search the house? Maybe they're all in on something. Now, again, you don't have to spin this whole crazy weave of conspiracy. I'm not saying that they have to do that, but just regular investigation into a crime when people invite someone to their house and then that person ends up dead on their front lawn 20 minutes later, there's probable cause. Okay, so that's kind of how that discussion went. Again, they pushed back on this. They kept saying, no, there's no probable cause to search the house, and repeated, that over and over. So that was how that went. Now, I said pretty clearly that, that's not really obviously the whole story there, because we know that Trooper Proctor texted that night, I think it was January 29th, that night, to a bunch of his buddies and saying they're talking about this case. And he said that the homeowner's not going to catch any slack over this because he's a Boston cop. Now, they said, well, I was taking that out of context, and I'm not exactly sure what context I was missing. She's like, well, yeah, because there's no other evidence that ties the house to the crime. Well, you're at the first day of the investigation. How do you know that on the first day of the investigation, that there's nothing that ties you're just starting off? So, I mean, for you on the first day of your investigation to say, yeah, and the homeowner's not going to catch anything on this because he's a Boston cop. and then say, well, she didn't, Trooper Proctor didn't mean that, they're not going to catch any slack because he's a Boston cop. He was just saying that there's no connection at that point. Yeah, well, how are you stating now then he's never going to catch any slack? Like, how are you stating that straight out? It's very clear. I think it's very clear to everybody what was going on there. So again, as I said to them and as I've said to Turtle Boy, I'm not embracing the conspiracy, but I think it's all kind of, we all understand over here that that house wasn't searched, most likely because it was a Boston cop's house. All right. So that can just add to whatever you want. You can start making conclusions from that. So I was just saying, this is just adds more reasonable doubt. And more, it means that the investigation was not thorough. It means that they're trying to protect one of their own. And in fact, you don't have to hear it from me. You can hear it from none other than Kevin, because that's exactly what Kevin said. Now I'm going to play it for you because I don't want anyone saying that I took this out of context either. So here we go. We'll put this up. This is 106. Okay, and listen to what Kevin has to say here about why that house wasn't searched.
Something that links him to the house. Something.
Well,
And is that a sign of
there.
corruption? Is that a sign of corruption, Martin, where they're planting evidence, or is that just a sign of there's a little bit of reluctance on the part of police to investigate their own? I want to.
So yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly reluctance on their behalf to investigate their own. That's exactly. Let's call it that. Let's not call it a conspiracy. Let's call it the fact that this investigation was not done fully and properly and thoroughly because there was a Boston cop involved. And that's why they didn't search the house. And that's why he got preferential treatment. Now, if that's how you're going to treat the investigation, well, then, of course, that's going to throw some shadow onto the entire investigation. And you know what that's going to do? That's going to create reasonable doubt. And that's my only position in this video, in this discussion. My only position in the discussion is that there's reasonable doubt. All these things just tell us that there's reasonable doubt. I don't need it. At least in my mind, I don't need all this to tell me that there's a conspiracy here. That was never my point of bringing up all these things. And I say it a number of times in this discussion, I'm not embracing the conspiracy. What I am saying here is that we don't know the full story because this investigation wasn't done properly. The house was never searched. And there's some other issues with this investigation. So that's all the point was. And here, I think you just heard it from Kevin himself, saying that this is one of them reluctance, not just reluctance, but they didn't. They never searched that house. And then it was sold. Okay, so let's move on to another point. And we were talking about how all those people left the house and didn't see John O'Keefe's body there. So they all left after the alleged accident, the car accident, the pedestrian strike, and Karen drove off. And now all these people are leaving the house and they never saw a body there. And so we spoke about that. And I said, again, I'm not saying that proves to me 100% that there's a conspiracy here. What I am saying is that that's really, really suspect. I really don't know. It sounds like someone's trying to hide some information. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. I'm not going to draw conclusions just yet and say, oh, that means that there's a conspiracy. What I am saying is that we're not getting the full story. And it's hard for me to swallow that all those people would leave that house and not notice a 6'2", 220 or 10-pound person lying on the ground. Especially Brian Higgins, who walked the entire length of the driveway. But anyway, so this is what Kate had to say about that. It's 107:51. Okay. The fact that the house wasn't searched, that smells to me like that's preferential treatment. The fact that everybody who left that house that night didn't see John O'Keefe on the ground. I think I struggle with that. And I'm
talking about
there's
science for that. There's science for that, right? It is pretty well
Capital S
established. Right. The science doesn't lie, right? You can look it up. It's called the monkey business illusion. And I think something like 90% of people that view it and aren't told ahead of time what they're viewing fall for it, right? Your brain.
So we got the monkey dancing illusion. And that's what she's saying. Well, it's science. It's science that all these people would not see a dead body there. It's just science. Now, none of the science was offered in trial, by the way. And remember, I tried to limit our discussion about what evidence we actually saw in trial. There was no expert who got up there and said that 90% of people will not notice a dead body there. Now, if the Commonwealth would have hired an expert, then that would be a very compelling argument. I would definitely consider that different. But the fact that all I know is that all those people were there, and all I get to use as a juror, if you're sitting as a juror, is common sense. It's hard for me to imagine that all those people wouldn't see it. Now, if you get some sort of expert to say that that's science and it's not just Kate saying it, well, then, okay, you got yourself a case. But this is not something that ever came out during trial. And I don't know what type of science this is. I'm not sure if this was tested and what type of controlled environment this was done. Like, I don't know any of this. Yeah, I'm familiar with some sort of video like that, but I don't know what type of science this is. And it definitely wasn't brought out during trial. So therefore, if it's not brought out during trial, as a juror, you can't rely on it. You just have to rely on your common sense. So if your common sense is that 8 people would walk by a dead body and not see it, okay, if that's what your common sense tells you, I can understand why people would have trouble with that. And that was all the only point that I was making there. And then we got into some arguments about Dr. Marie Russell. And this is where which is a good argument, which I always spoke about and told you guys on the channel, that the fact that they were not able to recover DNA evidence of the dog. So that's going to be an argument against Dr. Marie Russell, saying that these abrasions are from a dog attack. Where's the DNA? It was all tested for DNA and no DNA came back from that. It's a dog. So I've always said, yeah, that's definitely a decent argument to make. Definitely an argument that you could make and you should make if you're the Commonwealth. But I brought out the point to Kate is that you're saying that the fact that there's a lack of DNA that completely destroys the credibility of Dr. Marie Russell. So then I'm asking, well, what about the lack of bruising? It's the same type of logic, isn't it? The lack of DNA says it's no dog. Lack of bruising says it's no car. So if you want to use that logic, don't you have to use the logic the entire way? So let me just play you that right up here. Let's get to it's 138. Here we go. The lack of DNA, Kate. You were saying that the lack of DNA you think is just too overwhelming to overcome, and that's kind of how I feel the lack of bruising on the arm. That's too overwhelming for me to overcome, to say that a car hit her. So you can't, like you're kind of playing the lack of DNA. I'm saying, well, use the same logic and say the lack of bruising to the arm, lack of. So, I think that's a decent argument, and there was not really a great response. You can go ahead and look the entire video and see if you believe that issue was dealt with. Because again, the DNA is the science, right? We have to trust science, right? And even though I know the arguments that it was 3 months and sitting outside and then sitting in the corner of is sopping wet and all his clothing, I understand that. But if you're trying to hang your head on science with the capital S. Science and that science tells us that if there's no DNA, that means that there's no dog. Well, then the same science with a capital S tells you that these ARCA experts said that it wasn't science for this interaction to happen and these bruises to occur and this damage to the vehicle to happen. So you got to pick and choose. Either you're going to embrace the science and therefore, okay, you'll say it's not a dog and it wasn't a car. You're going to have to come up with some other theory. And so that's I think part of the problem here. So that was essentially, part of the clips of that debate. I think it was an okay debate to have, to show people that you can actually discuss things and remain patient, remain calm, and not call each other names. I think that, I guess it can be expected that people will try to, clip out parts of the debate that will make them look better and try to, throw some shadow on the other person who's debating and saying that he's misrepresenting your side. I guess that can be expected, but the best thing for all of you to do is just watch the entire debate and the entire discussion and watch my entire discussion with Turtle Boy and then decide whether I was, making things up or whether I was taking things out of context. And you can make your own decision for yourself, or you can just, get into Twitter wars about it. So I choose to have all the information as much as possible before making a decision. So yes, it's hard to keep track of every single little piece of evidence, and I may have mixed up some pieces of evidence. And if you find me on something, okay, let me know. I'll try to correct my opinion. But these type of things, like that, I took things out of context or things like something like that. That's when we see it. I think that it speaks for itself. So that's going to be it for now. Thank you all for tuning in, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe and like, and we will see you next time.